Hello everyone and welcome. In this video we're going to be talking about the Neanderthal Comet according to an astrological perspective and from the perspective of Anthroposophy and Astrosophy as well. So first off, I'd like to start with a couple of images of the comet. So in the picture here you can see that in general the comet is green. I'm sure that you saw a bunch of pictures of this comet online because the internet now is really very focusing much on this event. And yes, also because it's a very beautiful event. And as you can see, mainly the color of the comet is green. But maybe in this picture, we're going to appreciate another color there. So not everybody would agree with me, but in general, as you can see, we have another color here. The comet has two tails. One is the ion tail and the other is the dust tail. And as you can see in the dust tail, you can see this white yellowish color. So I believe that you can add to the equation this yellowish color as well. And we can't be 100% sure about it because, colors are subjective, right? But together, the green and yellow color, they make a lot of sense because they refer to the forces of the intellect. And we are going to find the same suggestion, the same clue to interpret this comet by looking at the sign of Gemini, where the comet is going to cross the ecliptic. Later on in this video, we're going to see that. But for now, the color of the comet is green, yellowish, and together these colors, they refer to the intellect, to intelligence. Now, before moving on, I'd like to take a look at what Steiner said about comets in general. And here you have a quote from a lecture that took place in 1912 in Helsinki, Finland. And the name of the series of lectures is Spiritual Beings in the Heavenly Bodies and in the Kingdoms of Nature. And I highly suggest it because it's a beautiful series of lectures, really. So if you want to read the quote, you can pause the video. But in general, what we can say about it, what Steiner said about comets, is that they are celestial bodies that are supposed to remove nasty astral forces produced by Luciferic beings, by Luciferic spirits, and getting rid of them. So they collect all the garbage, so to speak, all the nasty astral forces accumulated in the solar system, and they take that away from us. So their intervention is definitely good and positive. So we can look at this comet in general as a process of cleansing of our planetary system, of the solar system, right? And at the very end of the same lecture, Steiner is basically summing up the evolution of several celestial bodies such as comets, fixed stars, planets, and moons, and he is associating them with the spiritual hierarchies that you can read in this column here. So on top we have the seraphim and cherubim, and down we found thrones, spirits of wisdom, movement, form, time, archangels, angels, and human beings. Of course, I'm sure that you'll be familiar with these names if you follow Anthroposophy and Steiner's work, and if not, of course, I am highly suggesting Steiner's books in order to understand the general structure of the spiritual hierarchies and the spiritual world. Here we are mainly concerned with comets. So basically, as you can see, the evolution of comets, they are dependent upon two spiritual hierarchies, two spiritual choirs that are the seraphim and the cherubim. And so it's very interesting noticing how this activity, which is beautiful and it is taking place right now, is literally dependent on two of the highest spiritual beings that we can possibly access to, right? But because before, not before, but on a higher level than the seraphim, we find the Holy Trinity, the three logos, or logoi, basically. So comets are here to help, and they're here to get rid of these nasty astral luciferic forces. So back to the comet, we can now understand something else by looking at the name, because in my opinion, the name is not random. The comet was named after the Neanderthals because the folk soul, or the genius of language, usually hides inside of names, hints about the true nature of things. And so what are the Neanderthals, right? By the way, the comet, from a materialistic standpoint, or according to astronomers, were called Neanderthal Comet, because the last time it was here roughly 52,000 years ago. And so the Neanderthals could see the comet in the sky last time. And the Neanderthals, what are they? They are a type of men. We cannot say that they are humans, right? But they're definitely a stage in the general human evolution, at least according to the materialistic perspective, which I don't 100% agree with, being an anthroposopher, of course. But in general, the name Neanderthal, what it's doing is referring to a previous stage of human evolution. And it is also doing that with this greenish, yellowish color that is referring to the forces of the intellect. So as you can see here, we have a human type that is basically involved with intelligence, but an intelligence that refers to a human animal type rather than a human spiritual type. And so, in my opinion, this name is suggesting that we are risking to embrace an involutionary, not evolutionary, but the opposite, involutionary process. And this is my interpretation, especially because if I look at the last comets that appeared in our skies, we had at the end of 2020 the Neowise Comet, at the end of 2021 the Leonard Comet, and at the end of 2022 the Neanderthal Comet. And I see a sort of process here, because the Neowise Comet is definitely referring to a new wisdom that mankind could embrace, and it was magenta, it was beautiful. Then we have the Leonard Comet, and in the name you have the concept of the lion, and the color was green. So the green lion in spirituality is definitely a very alchemical process. So it was suggesting, again, a process of deep transformation. But the Neanderthal Comet, that is greenish, yellowish, and has this name, is really suggesting something else. It's suggesting that we are facing a risk here, right? And this involutionary process is definitely something that it is ongoing, especially because this intervention from the highest hierarchies was required, was needed somehow, right? So let's see where the comet is according to the zodiac. And in this picture, we can see the trajectory, the orbit of the comet in red here. And this is the position of the comet on February 11th. And please note that I am recording this video way earlier than this date, and the comet at that point might have dissolved because they are unpredictable. But as you can see, the comet is going to be in tight conjunction with Mars. So it is basically, its trajectory is going to cross Mars in a very tight conjunction. In the constellation of Taurus, and in the zodiac sign, the tropical zodiac sign of Gemini. So let's take a look at this other image here that, let's see if I can get myself out of the way. Here we go. So basically here, what you can see is the position of Mars on February 11, and Mars is going to be at 12 degrees and 57 Gemini. And it is in the zodiac sign of Gemini, which starts here and ends here. This point is basically the summer solstice. And in this era, the whole tropical sign of Gemini has on the background the constellation of Taurus. Now, the way that I'm using together tropical signs and constellations has to do with a perspective that I called the Three Zodiacs after the work of Willy Suker. And basically what we can understand is that Gemini, of course, has to do with the forces of the intellect. Mars has to do with war. And this martial forces in the zodiac sign of Gemini, which is about communication, it is about the market, is going on for now at least 7 months. And we witness through this war of propaganda, this war of market. We know that due to the eclipses, we have all those issues related to the supply chain. So we don't have resources, we're lacking resources such as gas, especially in Europe, with what's happening with the war. And of course, Mars is the god of war. And the comet is going to cross Mars on February 11 or 12. It really depends on where you are on Earth. But basically, in between these 2 days, we're going to have a very tight conjunction between the comet and Mars. And so putting everything together, we are risking big here, in my opinion, because it is true that the comet is here to help. But in astrology, usually comets, they break into this harmonious cosmos, in this order of things. And they break into this order and they, in a way, they ruin it. They get in the way. And they are doing it for good because, as Steiner said, they are getting rid of all these astral forces. But in my opinion, if this intervention was needed, there's a reason for that. And the reason is that humanity is going, well, the wrong direction. And we risk here to get too much involved in this involutionary process that is going to address war here, because the god of war, Mars, is definitely part of the equation of this process. So if we want to sum it up, we can say that we have first and foremost the color, that it is about the intellect. Then we have the name Neanderthal, that is basically suggesting this involutionary process. And ultimately we have Mars in Gemini with this Taurus constellation in the background. That is basically saying, if you don't embrace in human relationships, in this Gemini energy, a more spiritual perspective, and this perspective has to do with the forces of Taurus that in Astrosophy are tightly connected to the Holy Ghost. And if you don't bring the human spirit in human interactions and human relationships, then what we are risking here is to get stuck in this involutionary process. So this is my interpretation for this comet. As you may know, we don't know much about comets. We don't have a solid astrological tradition about them. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. And if you want to support my work, you can subscribe to this channel. You can activate the notification bell, like this video, and share it with friends and family. Thanks for watching.